Athens, 399 BC, a prison cell is bathed in the golden light of a setting sun. In the center sits an old man, barefoot and balding, surrounded by his weeping disciples. On the table before him sits a small clay cup filled with crushed hemlock, a deadly poison. Most men in this position would be begging for mercy, pleading with the guards, or plotting an escape. But this man, Socrates, is the calmest person in the room. He looks at his grieving friends and asks, "What is this strange outcry? I sent the women away mainly to avoid such a scene." He is not afraid of death because he has already mastered the much harder task of living with integrity. Socrates is known as the father of Western philosophy, but he never wrote a single book. He didn't lecture from a podium. Instead, he walked the streets of Athens, asking questions. He was a gadfly stinging the lazy minds of his fellow citizens. His method was simple inquiry. He believed that the path to wisdom began with 3 words: "I know nothing." This humility was his greatest strength, but it made him many enemies. The powerful elite of Athens felt threatened by his questioning of their traditions and authority. Eventually, they brought him to trial on false charges of corrupting the youth and impiety. During his trial, Socrates was given a choice. If he promised to stop philosophizing, to stop asking questions, and to conform to the expectations of the state, he could walk free. But Socrates refused. He stood before his accusers and uttered the famous words that have echoed through 2,000 years. The unexamined life is not worth living. To Socrates, to stop questioning was to stop being human. He chose the death of his body over the death of his conviction. Why does a story from 2,000 years ago matter to us today? Because we live in a modern-day Athens, a world where the pressure to conform is relentless. We are constantly told what to think, what to buy, and who to be. We wear masks on social media to gain approval, often sacrificing our true selves for the sake of likes and followers. We fear being canceled or rejected by the crowd. In this noise, we lose our autonomy. Socrates stands as a reminder that the only approval that truly matters is the one you see in the mirror. The most powerful part of Socrates' story is not his trial, but the nights he spent in prison before his execution. His wealthy friend Crito came to him with a plan to bribe the guards and smuggle him out of the city. It was an easy escape. But Socrates sat Crito down and asked a simple question. If I break the law to save my life, am I not destroying the very principles I have taught my whole life? He realized that his life was not his own. It belonged to the truth he represented. He understood the transience of the physical body, but the permanence of the soul as character. When the time came to drink the hemlock, Socrates did so with a steady hand. He didn't see it as a tragedy, but as a final act of letting go. He believed that a good man cannot be harmed, either in life or in death, because the only real harm is that which we do to our own souls by acting unjustly. This is the ultimate form of control, the realization that while others can take your freedom, your property, or even your life, they cannot take your choice to remain a person of character. For many of us, the hemlock we face is the pressure to lie to ourselves. It is the temptation to stay silent when we should speak, or to follow the crowd when we know they are wrong. We suffer because we are divided against ourselves. We feel a sense of unease because our actions do not match our values. Socrates teaches us that the path to healing begins with radical honesty. It begins by daring to ask yourself, who am I when no one is watching? When you develop the courage to be true to yourself, something miraculous happens. The fear of what others think begins to fade. You stop being a puppet of social expectations and start being the architect of your own inner empire. You find a sense of peace that the world cannot give and the world cannot take away. This is the discipline of the philosopher, to live in accordance with reason, even when it is difficult. As you go about your week, remember the man in the Athenian cell. Remember that you don't have to be perfect, but you must be honest. When you are faced with a choice between your reputation and your soul, choose your soul. For in the end, as Socrates showed us, a life lived with integrity is the only life that truly leaves a legacy. Be brave enough to examine your life. Be brave enough to be yourself. And like Socrates, you will find a strength that even the strongest poison cannot touch.